Now I am finally going to show you the colors that I chose for the wheels and some of the engine caps and accessories, and also the swing arm, and it pops. It is sharp. Check it out. And here we are with the parts. Check out these wheels and swing arm. For the wheels, I went with this bronze chrome. I haven't done any bronze on a motorcycle before. I've done brown, but never bronze chrome. And it is nice. It's subtle, right? It's not like super, super shiny and chromy, but it's going to pop. And that's what I want. This is a total custom motorcycle. I want it to be noticed. And talk about being noticed. Check out this color that I went with for the swing arm and a couple other little parts. This is such a cool color. Now it just has a number. It doesn't actually have a name, but the powder coater described it really, really well. He said, it's almost like melted vanilla ice cream. I could not be happier with the outcome and the color choices that I went with. So shut up and let's just start putting it together.
I like this part of the project because you can just sort of turn your brain off a little bit. I'm not saying that this is easy, right? But we're a long way from 6 months ago when we're spending an entire day fabricating our kickstand, or whatever. Either way, this part of the project, you can just sort of turn your brain off, slather a bunch of grease on everything, and just start putting stuff together. And with all these bearings, having spent a night or two in the freezer and then pressing them in with the right tool, everything goes in pretty straightforward. Except this is what I was worried about, right? These wheel studs that hold on the drive hub. These I had to put in the shop press to get out. But going back in, you can see they actually went in a lot easier than I anticipated.
Oh, it looks like I peed my pants. If I was the Tin Man. Get it? Because it's motor oil?
It's finally time to start taking all these separate parts and putting them together. So I guess we'll just try it.
It's a motorcycle.
It is indeed, James. It is indeed. And maybe after we get the frame bolted to the engine, or the engine bolted to the frame, it'll be a motorcycle that actually rides and drives down the road. I like to lay my wiring harness out on the bike pretty early on. That way you don't have to sort of bob and weave around lots of things. Kind of get this laid out first. Getting the frame and the engine mounted wasn't too hard. Just make sure you leave everything nice and loose until all the bolts are through the holes, and then tighten stuff down. One area of the bike that I sort of splurged on was these Pro Bolt stainless steel black anodized bolts. Those are nice. A bunch of the bolts that from the factory were silver, I went and upgraded to these stainless steel black anodized ones, just for a more uniform look. And the devil's in the details. It's little details like that that really pull a whole bike together. And when somebody who knows what they're looking at is looking at this thing, they notice that and they're like, dang, this guy actually gives a darn, right? He went to the extra trouble of getting these black anodized bolts. What a guy. What a guy. And we are just knocking things off our checklist. Now we're putting on the shock, the rear subframe. Everything is so nice and powder coated. It just is such a pleasure to put these things together. When everything is clean and new, all brand new fasteners, it's great. We can whip out our fresh bronze chrome powder coated brake drum, start assembling our rear brakes so that we can get our back wheel on this motorcycle too. Guess what I'm about to use? Can you guess? Can you guess? Grease. Who would have ever imagined? More grease. I don't know why I hate it so much. I know why. Because it gets everywhere. And on a freshly painted, powder-coated motorcycle, if you touch one thing with that greasy finger, it gets over everything and it's hard to get off. But, we're having fun. We're having fun as I manhandle the brake shoes onto this sort of drum holder plate, brake plate. I don't even know what you call it. Brake plate. It's called a brake plate, everybody. If you were to go back in these Virago videos months and months and months, you'll find eventually where I customized this kickstand. The bike is much lower than before, so I had to shorten the kickstand, took it apart, got it all powder coated, and now it's time to reassemble it, of course with more grease. Now, a couple times you've seen me run a tap through these threaded holes. Although there's no powder overspray messing up those threads, from the sandblasting process, they do just get a little bit dirty. So running a tap through them cleans them out to make sure that your bolt can thread in perfectly. It's time, ladies and gentlemen. It's time to separate the panda bears from the koala bears. You know what I'm talking about? It's time to separate the people who mount and balance their own motorcycle tires from people who are smart. So let's mount and balance our motorcycle tires. These blue rim savers, guess what they do? They save your rims. That's right, especially on freshly powder-coated rim, they're a must-have. People say you need different amounts. 4 is my magic number. With 4, I'm never sort of short one, and I always have one to put wherever I think I might need it next. Here you can see with the rim savers, lots of soapy water, and just some little spoons, the tires go on nice and easy. Time to knock another thing off our list, and that's to mount our front brake rotors. All of these little bolts, I made sure to use some thread locker on them, took the torque wrench to each one. Now don't worry, I know you guys love to hear the click of the torque wrench. It's coming a little bit later, don't you worry. I had to make this little metal cover here to cover up this hole in the frame because that's where the stock air filter mounts to. And if you guys remember, I'm running a custom 2-to-1 intake for our Mikuni carb setup, so the filter will just be on the side of that carb. Let's lube up with grease our front axle shaft. Guys, we're mounting a tire. We're literally putting a wheel on this thing. Is it a motorcycle when it has an engine and a frame? Is it a motorcycle when it has forks? Is it a motorcycle when it has wheels? I don't know, but either way, once the wheels are on, it's a motorcycle. Told you it was coming. Wasn't that satisfying? Let's mount our brakes now. I used these black anodized brake bolts as well from ProBolt. These ProBolt stainless stuff, it's expensive. They also sell titanium and race spec bolts that you can use some safety wire with, but I think it's worth it. Like I said, those little details, buy once, cry once. A lot of the little engine accessory covers, like the tappet covers and the cam chain covers, I got powder coated in that same bronze chrome, just to sort of pop off, you know. I feel like if you're paying for it to get powder coated, you might as well make it pop a little bit. This is the best grease to use on drive shaft splines, not normal wheel bearing grease. It has to be a moly-based, non-metallic grease. Normally, the stuff that a lot of BMW users use, because most of those are shaft driven, is really, really expensive, like made in Germany. This stuff is made by Loctite. It's a great, affordable replacement. I'll link to this and everything else down below in the description. You know what's crazy to me? Metallurgy. Like, so much when you build a motorcycle, you realize that so much is weighted and sort of dependent on a single rod of metal or a single bolt, a single nut, right? Just some threads holding a bolt together. Like the fact that we can make metals that are so strong, like this rod. This is just a solid metal rod that the entire sort of rear sprung weight of the motorcycle is on with this monoshock here. And nobody ever thinks to themselves, oh, I wonder if that's going to break. And just that single cotter pin is holding it from sliding out. Like metal, you know? Have you ever just thought about it? You know what would go really well with our mounted front wheel? How about a mounted rear wheel? Let's lock with these lock tabs all of those rear drive, flange, hub thing nuts in place. And then remember, because we have a wider rear tire, we have to put it all together and then slide it in the swing arm as one. So on the other side, I'm holding the brake hub in. We have our rear drive hub on our left side, and then we roll it all in together. Make sure that our drive shaft engages with the splines up front that we just lubricated. And now we put our axle in. And this thing's getting really close. There was nothing wrong with this old gold steering stem nut, but it just was kind of wimpy looking. So from ProBolt, I got this nice thick gold aluminum one. Now the anodized finish is a lot thinner than powder coat, so I like to tape off nuts and hardware like this before I do the final tightening. That way you don't scratch or gouge that anodized finish. let's take a step back now and look at what we just built. Man, this thing is looking friggin' sweet. I mean, look at this thing. That is cool. I mean, look at it. Look at the cool matte black, the vanilla swing arm, the bronze chrome. Man.
Projects like this, ones that are now or a few months over a year long, I can imagine watching, you're like, is this thing ever gonna get done? And there are a lot of YouTubers out there that start a lot of projects, and there's just a lot of people that start a lot of projects that never get done. So hopefully, with what's sitting behind me right now, you're convinced this thing's getting finished. So be sure you hit that subscribe button so you're notified for this next Virago video. We've got clip-ons, hand controls, the foot pegs, rear sets, and all the foot controls, and then the electronics. And then we can start it up, maybe. Thanks for watching.